I was 34 when the first Aboriginal Embassy was set up.
4 warriors, tired of all these things that weren't happening. They set up the Tent Embassy.
Something positive for me came out of the tent.
But I just felt the spirit again of what was happening.
And I went there with my youngest daughter, who was 5 months old, and we put her in a bassinet and put a puppy in with her feet to try and keep her warm, because by then it was the 7th of April in 1972.
I thought the march was pretty successful. I would have thought maybe 1,500 or so people. It replayed the original march from 72, where 3,000 marched. That was all very successful. Then there was the infamous cafe incident, which wasn't a riot, but has been reported as such. It was only 50 metres or so from where the tents were camped, so of course if people heard after what Abbott had said that he was there, they were going to go down. You can see the footage. There's not a lot of protesters or things in the footage as they're dragging Julia Gillard. Lost a shoe, which Pat managed to gain, a blue suede shoe. I think Gingerella, I think she was reported as. The police responded quite violently.
Get out! Get out! Come on, mate! Pushing a channel. Hey! Move rear! Don't fucking shake off, idiot!
Punching a few Aboriginal people.
Back there! Get him on camera!
No, it's all right.
And there was a press conference as well about the shoe. Invite the Prime Minister to come down to the embassy to collect her shoe, so that people could raise some of their concerns. Pat threw in that they'd put the shoe on eBay if it wasn't collected, and raise some funds for the embassy.
I'm of Aboriginal and South Sea Islander descent. The Queensland Protection of Aborigines Act was still going, and people were working, but they weren't given wages in the hand. Wages were given to the police and then doled out to the Aboriginal people as those individual police saw fit or chose to do. And quite often the people didn't get any money at all. My father, a unionist, he was a cane cutter, so he was with the AWU. He was a meat worker and freezer worker, so he was with the AMIEU. He was also a wharfie, and so he was with the WWF. And each May Day we always were in the May Day marches. And so I'll give you this political background because when Kath Walker came through in 1962 and was talking to the wharfies and the railway workers to get funds, my father said, "There's a woman down at the Grand Hotel that you should go and talk to." But I went, and there was Kath. She told me, "Oh, you must come up to Cairns. We've got this campaign going," and so that was the beginning of it. And so I was introduced to the campaign for the Yes campaign for the Aboriginal question in that 67 referenda. And at that time there wasn't any policy about Aboriginal affairs. We were still connected to flora and fauna at that stage. That went on. We had the referendum. We had that amazing result of the electorate, the Australian electorate, non-Indigenous people saying something's got to be done about Aboriginal advancement. Nothing was done about it. The 4 warriors, tired of all these things that weren't happening, they set up the Tent Embassy under an umbrella given by a comrade, and their sign was written on pieces of manila folders put together. And so it was good to go and celebrate the 40th. The other two is if they're going to get rid of the Aboriginal Tent Embassy, they have to get rid of the other embassies that are there too.
Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that we meet here tonight on the land of the traditional owners on their stolen lands. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. We must never, ever forget that all this land is stolen. Every square millimetre of it. I got up and called for what had been a point of discussion up here in Sydney for some time, which was a national Aboriginal deaths in custody group. For too long we've been fighting these battles on a state and territory basis. We need a national body. So if a death happens like the previous one up in the Northern Territory with Mr. Briscoe, the groups from all of the other states and territories can jump on that, give media support and rattle the cages in their own areas.
Yeah, I was sort of encouraged by the Tent Embassy. I mean, the spirit is there, continue to fight. Now, it's for the young people to take it forward, you know. The discussion that we had a little group was some of the young men said we want to start a young warriors group somehow, you know. Talk that I gave, I said the word militant. I think we need to get back into that again. Having these young people very defiant and, you know, for their rights there. Now these young fellas are going to take this on again for the next 40 years or whatever. And we need to educate them in that proper way. And I was happy to meet, there was a fellow named Billy Harrison there. His son was there that day, and he was very proud that he was taken away, and like a lot of other people, but he found out that his father was involved in that first 1972. So he wanted to take, he's one of the men that we actually had at the tent, and he said, I'll stay here as long as it takes and I'll fight for it, you know, because his father was there.